"Officer, I haven't broken any laws. Why am I being stopped?" The cop stared at the cherry-red Ferrari, then at the black man in the driver's seat. He hawked and spat on the hood. 200 grand, and some black boy behind the wheel. He chuckled. "Get your ass out, sir." "I'm complying," the man replied. "Did I say speak?" The cop ripped the door open, yanked Marcus out, and smashed him against the hood. "You people are all the same. Thieves, dealers, animals." The officer's voice oozed contempt. He pulled out his keys and dragged them across the Ferrari side, leaving a deep, brutal scar in the paint. "A monkey doesn't deserve a car like this." A pickup slowed, the driver yelling, "Mess up that thug's ride, officer." A teenager filmed, snickering. No one intervened. Just a black man watching a cop demolish his $200,000 car. But the officer, the jeering driver, the laughing kid, they had no clue who they were provoking. 6 hours before that stop, morning light slipped through the blinds of a small house in Decatur, Georgia. Marcus Carter stood at his bathroom mirror, pinching the collar of a freshly pressed dress shirt. The fabric was stiff, the creases razor sharp. Details mattered to a man who'd spent a lifetime proving he belonged where he wasn't wanted. 42 years old, 16 years with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, a veteran in the Public Corruption Unit who had personally helped put 19 crooked politicians and a dozen dirty cops into federal prisons. He'd stared down liars in suits and predators with badges. But today wasn't about that. It was Sunday, and Sundays were reserved for his mother. That rule stood taller than any federal statute in Marcus's world. On his dresser sat a framed photo. Marcus studied every single morning. A younger him in marine dress blues, standing beside an older black man with tired eyes, rough hands, and the proudest smile Marcus had ever seen. His father, Thomas Carter. Next to the frame rested a folded American flag in a triangular case, the kind given to families at military funerals while a bugler plays taps, and everyone pretends not to cry. Thomas had worked 40 years for the Postal Service. Rain, heat, sleet. It didn't matter. 6 days a week, 4 decades straight. No fancy vacations, no expensive toys, rarely even a new pair of shoes. He never complained. But every Sunday after church, father and son walked downtown. They'd pass the Ferrari dealership on Peachtree Street, and the old man would stop, press his weathered palm to the glass, eyes fixed on the red cars. "One day, Marcus," he'd say, voice thick with a dream he knew he'd never touch, "one day, you and me are going to ride in one of those." That day never came. Cancer took him 2 years earlier, pancreatic stage 4 before anyone knew. 3 months from diagnosis to burial. In his final letter, scrawled in shaky handwriting on yellow legal paper, Thomas left 5 words that rewired his son's entire life. "Get that red one, son." So Marcus did. He found a certified pre-owned Ferrari Roma at a Buckhead dealership, Rosso Corsa Red, the classic Ferrari Crimson, the exact color his father's gaze had lingered on through showroom glass. Just over 8,000 miles on it. Previous owner, some hedge fund guy who traded up to a Lamborghini. Sticker price, $198,000. Marcus didn't finance it. He walked in and paid cash. Every dollar from his savings, every cent of his father's life insurance. 15 years of putting something aside instead of splurging. $200,000 of grief, loyalty, and a promise kept. Now the car sat in his garage, gleaming under bright LED strips like a sculpture. Each morning before work, Marcus brushed his hand along the hood, not for the luxury, not to flaunt it, but because it felt like touching his father. The passenger seat remained untouched, still wrapped in plastic when he first got it, then carefully cleaned and never used. Marcus was saving it, as if somehow, some way, his father might still claim that ride. Today he was finally driving the Ferrari to Millbrook County to visit his mother. Just a simple Sunday trip. No undercover op, no surveillance, no wiretaps. Just family, home cooking, and his mother's stubborn prayers. He walked to his closet and opened the small safe bolted into the floor. Inside lay his Glock 19mm service pistol, a leather credential wallet holding his gold FBI badge, and a spare magazine. His fingers brushed the badge. Habit said, "Take it." Then he paused. It was his day off. He was just a son visiting his mom. He slid the badge back, closed the safe. That choice would cost him $200,000. 20 minutes later, Marcus cruised along I-20 with the windows cracked, warm Georgia air folding into the cabin. His phone sat in the center console, his mother's voice spilling through the speakers on hands-free. "You better not be flying in that thing," she warned. "I don't care what it cost. A ticket's still a ticket." Marcus chuckled. "Ma, I'm law enforcement. I play by the rules." That's what your daddy always said right before they pulled him over." He smiled softly. "I'll be there by 2. Dinner still at 6? "Dinner's always at 6. Don't you come late, Marcus James." 15 minutes later, he crossed the county line. A green sign announced, "Welcome to Millbrook County, population 48,000, a family community." The sign left out the parts that really mattered, the statistics that never made brochures. Millbrook's median household income hovered around $92,000. Its black population barely reached 11%. Over the last 5 years, the Millbrook County Sheriff's Department had gathered 52 formal complaints for racial profiling. Every single one was dismissed without discipline. Marcus glided into a gas station just past the county line. As he stepped out of the Ferrari, he noticed a white patrol car idling in the corner. The officer inside watched him, not the vehicle. Marcus had been stared at his whole life. In stores, at security checkpoints, in boardrooms where everyone assumed he was the help. He didn't flinch now. What he didn't see was Deputy Darren Cole picking up his radio. "Dispatch, running plates on a red exotic, Decatur registration, black male driver, requesting backup to Shadow." Cole was 34, 8 years on patrol, and in that time he'd collected his own record. 8 formal complaints, excessive force, racial slurs, bogus searches, intimidation. Every complaint had evaporated in the system. Supervisors called him thorough. Fellow deputies labeled him effective. Millbrook's black residents had less flattering names. Marcus finished pumping gas, replaced the nozzle, and eased back onto the road. In his rearview mirror, he saw the patrol car slide out of the lot behind him, slotting into his lane. His hands moved to 10 and 2. His breathing stayed even, his pulse controlled. He didn't know exactly what was coming. But then again, neither did Deputy Darren Cole. The cruiser tailed Marcus for exactly 3.7 miles before the lights erupted. Blue and red bursts flooded the rearview mirror. Marcus glanced at his speedometer. 53 and a 55, no speeding. Tags current, registration legit, insurance paid. None of it mattered. He signaled immediately and guided the Ferrari onto the shoulder, stopping on an empty stretch of two-lane road framed by Georgia pines. He'd done this before. Every black man in America had, in some form. The unwritten protocol pulsed through him. Keep your hands visible. Move slowly. Speak calmly. Announce every action. Don't argue. Don't resist. Don't give them a reason. Survive now. Fight the injustice later. Cole strutted up to the driver's window with the swagger of someone who'd never faced real consequences. His partner, Deputy Evan Locke, lingered by the patrol car, shifting his weight like a man desperate to be anywhere else. License and registration. Cole's tone was flat, bored. Keep your hands where I can see 'em. Afternoon, officer, Marcus replied, voice professional, neutral. My license is in my back left pocket. Registration's in the glove box. I'm going to reach for them slowly, if that's acceptable. He narrated every movement. Classic FBI training. Remove ambiguity, erase excuses, build a clean record. Cole inspected the license, then let his eyes drift over the Ferrari's interior. The leather seats, carbon fiber trim, digital dashboard that probably cost more than his yearly take-home pay. His gaze slid back to Marcus. Decatur, he said, like it was something spoiled. Long way from home, huh? I'm visiting my mother in Millbrook, officer. Nice ride for someone from Decatur. Cole leaned in, so close Marcus could smell stale coffee on his breath. Where'd you get the money for a toy like this? I purchased it legally. Is there an issue with my driving, officer? That's when Cole spat on the hood. The glob landed on the red paint and began crawling toward the windshield like a slug trail. $200,000, Cole muttered, shaking his head in fake disbelief. And a black boy driving it. He let out an ugly laugh. Get your ass out of the car, now! Officer, I have the right to know why I'm being detained. Did I say you could talk? Cole yanked the door open hard enough to stress the hinges, grabbed Marcus by the front of his carefully ironed shirt, and dragged him out. Marcus's shoulder slammed into the doorframe. His knee scraped the threshold. Cole shoved him face first onto the hood. The metal, hot from the Georgia sun, burned through fabric. You people are all the same, Cole sneered. Thieves, drug pushers, pimps, animals. Where'd you get this car? You steal it, sling crack, pimp out your sister? Marcus kept his cheek pressed to the scorching hood, hands flat by his head, mouth shut. Answer me! Cole kicked Marcus's legs apart with his boot. A monkey in a suit doesn't belong in a car like this. So where'd the money come from? I'm a federal employee, Marcus said, voice eerily steady. I saved for 15 years and bought this vehicle legally. Cole burst out laughing. Federal employee? What, you deliver mail? Work the post office counter like your daddy probably did? Marcus's jaw tightened at the jab. My name is Marcus Carter, badge number 4429. Cole's laughter cut off. His eyes narrowed. Badge number? What are you, mall security? Rent-a-cop at the welfare office? He turned toward his partner. You hear that, Locke? This boy thinks he's somebody. Deputy Locke stared at the dirt, saying nothing. 50 yards down the road, a silver Toyota Camry eased onto the shoulder, engine idling. Behind the wheel sat Ruth Campbell, a 67-year-old retired third-grade teacher who'd spent 35 years instructing kids in Millbrook. She was heading home from the grocery store, trunk loaded with canned goods and boxed meals for her church's food pantry. What she saw through the windshield made her stomach twist. A black man pinned against a red sports car, a white deputy looming over him. Something about it felt profoundly, dangerously wrong. Ruth's hands trembled as she opened her purse, but her resolve was steel. She pulled out her phone and hit record. Back at the Ferrari, Cole wasn't finished. "I'm going to search this vehicle," he announced. "Officer, I do not consent to a search," Marcus said clearly. "I do not consent. Am I being detained? What's the probable cause for this stop?" Cole ignored him like he hadn't spoken. He moved around to the driver's side and began shredding through the interior. He emptied the glove box onto the passenger seat. Registration, insurance papers, manuals tossed like garbage. He rummaged through the center console, flinging a phone charger, sunglasses, and a pack of gum onto the floor. Custom floor mats were ripped out and dropped on the pavement. Then Cole pulled a pocket knife from his belt with theatrical certainty. "I gotta check for hidden compartments," he announced to no one. "Dealers love hiding their stash in the seats." He drove the blade into the driver's seat and dragged it downward. The Italian leather split like skin. He slashed again, then again. 4 long wounds across the very seat Marcus's father had never gotten to occupy. Marcus shut his eyes and inhaled slowly. He'd stared down cartel hitmen, hostage takers, killers. He'd kept calm in rooms humming with danger. But watching this stranger eviscerate his father's dream, that cut differently. Cole climbed out, empty-handed, sweat beading along his hairline, frustration creeping in. He'd torn through everything and found exactly what was there. Nothing. No drugs, no cash, no weapons, just new leather and the ghost of an old man's wish. Cole circled the Ferrari with exaggerated suspicion, irritation mounting. He'd counted on finding something, anything, to justify what he'd already done and what he was planning next. He found only clean surfaces and silence. Stopping at the passenger side, he pulled out his keys and, slow and deliberate, dragged them from front headlight to rear taillight. The jagged scratch carved through Rosso Corsa, paint down to bare metal, shrieking across the quiet road. Then he kicked the driver's door twice. The aluminum caved like foil. He lifted his heavy Maglite flashlight and slammed it into the side mirror. Glass burst into fragments, scattering across the asphalt like broken ice. Cole climbed onto the hood and stomped, once, twice, 3 times, leaving boot-sized craters in the sculpted metal. "Looks like you got some prior damage," he said with a smirk. "Shame. Maybe next time don't drive what you can't afford." Through it all, Marcus didn't swing, didn't shout, didn't jerk away. He just lay there, one tear sliding down his cheek, burning hotter than the hood beneath him. Cole grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, I've got a combative suspect resisting a lawful traffic stop, requesting immediate backup." "Officer," Marcus said, voice cutting through the heavy air, "I have not resisted. I haven't moved. I followed every instruction. Your body camera is recording everything." Cole's grin widened. "Body cam? Yeah, funny thing about that. Malfunctioned. Battery died about 10 minutes ago," he shrugged. "Technology, right? Can't trust it." He stalked toward Marcus, grabbed his collar, and hurled him to the ground. Marcus went limp, a trained response drilled into him over years. "Don't tense. Don't fight. Don't give them an excuse." "Stop resisting," Cole shouted for any onlookers. Marcus lay face down on burning asphalt, hands behind his back. Ruth stepped out of her Camry, phone still pointed at the scene, lens wide open. Her hands shook, but her voice rang clear. "I'm recording this! That man didn't do anything wrong. I saw the whole thing." Cole glanced back at her. For half a heartbeat, something uncertain flickered in his eyes. Then it vanished. He snapped handcuffs onto Marcus's wrists. "You're under arrest. Resisting arrest, obstruction, felony, evasion." "I did not evade," Marcus said, cheek grinding into the asphalt, tiny stones biting his skin. "I did not obstruct. I did not resist." Cole yanked him up and shoved him toward the patrol car. As Marcus passed the wrecked Ferrari, he caught a glimpse of what remained of his father's dream. The long scar down the side, the crushed door, the missing mirror, boot dents in the hood, slashed leather gaping inside. Then Cole did the thing that would follow him for the rest of his life. He stuffed Marcus in the back of the cruiser and slammed the door. He walked to his own patrol unit, climbed in, started the engine, dropped it into reverse, and floored it. The car shot backward and slammed into the Ferrari's nose with a sickening crunch. Metal screamed. The hood folded like cardboard. The grille shattered into flying shards. Both headlights exploded. The radiator burst, vomiting green coolant across the asphalt like blood. $200,000 of love and mourning obliterated in 3 seconds. Through the back window, Marcus watched, silent. Cole picked up his radio. Voice casual, almost bored. "Dispatch, minor vehicle contact. During arrest, suspect's vehicle rolled forward into my cruiser. No injuries. Send a TOW." On the shoulder, Ruth stood frozen, phone capturing every frame. The Ferrari, Thomas Carter's dream, Marcus's entire savings, a promise fulfilled, now sat crumpled and steaming at the roadside. Insurance would later tally the damage at $127,000. Total loss. Salvage value, $8,200. Marcus didn't argue. He didn't plead. He didn't need to. He was already assembling evidence in his head. Every word, every movement, every lie, he cataloged it all with the precision of a federal investigator. The Millbrook County Sheriff's Station smelled like burnt coffee, stale sweat, and something sour. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, bathing everything in a tired yellow hue. In the booking area, Marcus stood in handcuffs, waiting to be processed. Photographed, fingerprinted, logged like every other body dragged through those doors. The booking officer, a heavy-set woman in her 50s, looked like she'd seen everything and cared about none of it anymore. She typed without glancing up. Full name, Marcus Elijah Carter. Date of birth, February 17th, 1983. Address, 327 Oak Ridge Lane, Decatur, Georgia. Occupation, Marcus paused a fraction of a second. Federal government. Her fingers froze. She lifted her eyes, really studying him now. Something flickered. Curiosity, maybe suspicion. He didn't look like her usual clientele. Then she shrugged, typed it in, went back to work. Another warning sign ignored. They placed Marcus in a holding cell, gray concrete walls, metal bench bolted to the floor. Stainless steel toilet without a lid. It smelled like disinfectant, trying and failing to kill fear, sweat, and regret. Marcus sat, folded his hands, and breathed. Most people in his position would have demanded a phone call immediately, demanded supervisors, shouted about their rights, threatened lawsuits and careers. Marcus did none of that. He understood timing. If he revealed who he was now, the cover-up would start in minutes. Reports rewritten, paper shredded, body camera footage would develop permanent technical issues, files misfiled or erased. He needed them to lock in their lies first, needed falsified narratives on record, fabricated details documented, every corrupt move sealed in official paperwork before anyone realized who they'd cuffed. So he waited, letting them think they'd broken another nameless black man. When his one phone call came, he dialed his mother. "Ma, I'll be late." Something came up. Her voice sharpened instantly. "Marcus, what's wrong? Where are you? I heard sirens earlier." "I'm okay, Ma, I promise. Just a misunderstanding. I'll explain everything tomorrow." "Marcus Elijah Carter, you tell me right now." "I love you, Ma. I'll call you tomorrow." He hung up gently, exhaling. Let them believe they'd crushed him. Across the building, in the deputy's bullpen, Darren Cole sat at his desk typing his incident report with the satisfaction of a man who believed he was untouchable. His fingers flew over the keys. Suspect displayed erratic behavior upon initial contact, failed to comply with lawful commands, made furtive movements toward waistband, creating officer safety concerns. Suspect removed from vehicle and secured without incident. Suspect vehicle sustained minor damage when it rolled forward into patrol car. Body-worn camera experienced technical failure at approximately 14:32 hours and was non-functional during encounter. 7 lies in one neat paragraph, submitted as sworn fact. Sergeant Denise Harper reviewed the report in her cramped office. She'd supervised Cole for 6 years, signed off on every dismissed complaint, every questionable use of force, every mysterious vehicle accident. She skimmed, initialed the bottom. "Good work, Cole. DA'll probably plead it down, but at least we got another dealer off the road." Cole grinned. "Just doing my job, Sarge." Across town, in a tidy living room cluttered with family photos and church flyers, Ruth Campbell sat on her couch, hands still trembling. She'd already watched her video 17 times. Each replay stoked her anger. The cruiser slamming backward, the crunch of metal, the cuffed man who never raised his voice, never swung, never did anything except drive the wrong car in the wrong county with the wrong skin. She picked up her phone and made 3 calls. First, the Millbrook County chapter of the NLAJCP. Second, the tip line at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Third, she opened Facebook and uploaded the video with a simple caption: "Millbrook deputy destroys innocent man's car, arrests him for nothing. I saw everything. I have proof." Within 2 hours, the clip had 50,000 views. Within 4, it had 500,000. By sunset, the video had passed 2 million views. Local news vans converged on the sheriff's station like vultures circling roadkill. Reporters shouted questions at anyone in uniform. Cameras flashed, mics shoved forward. Deputies mumbled no comment and ducked inside. By midnight, the story had gone national. Viral video shows Georgia deputy rammed 200K Ferrari during traffic stop. The Millbrook County Sheriff's Office released a statement at 11:47 p.m., stiff and defensive. "We are aware of the video circulating on social media and stand firmly behind our deputies' professionalism. The vehicle contact shown was accidental and occurred when the suspect's vehicle rolled forward during arrest. The department will conduct a routine review of the incident." Accidental! The internet didn't buy it! Comments flooded in by the thousands. Outrage, fury, demands for accountability. The video spread, downloaded, reposted on every platform like a digital wildfire. But the real storm brewed somewhere else, entirely. FBI Atlanta Field Office, 9th floor. During a coffee break, a young intelligence analyst named Ariana Lewis scrolled through her newsfeed. She stopped cold. She knew that face. The booking photo on her screen belonged to a man she'd worked with 3 years earlier on a public corruption case. a man who'd helped bring down a county commissioner and 2 city council members on bribery charges. "Run this name," she told the analyst at the neighboring desk, voice suddenly sharp. "Marcus Carter, Decatur address, pull everything now." The database query took 4 seconds. Ariana went pale. "Oh my God!" 15 minutes later, Assistant Special Agent in Charge Leonard Brooks was on the phone, tone colder than ice water. "You're telling me one of my agents, a 16-year veteran in public corruption, was arrested by some county deputy for resisting and his 200,000 personal vehicle totaled? And no one thought to call us for—" He checked his watch. 7 hours? He slammed a folder onto his desk hard enough to rattle his coffee mug. "Get me Internal Affairs, FBI and Millbrook County. Get me the U.S. Attorney's Office. Pull everything on Deputy Darren Cole. Complaints, incident reports, performance reviews, all of it." He paused, exhaled once. "We're going to handle this strictly by the book." Another beat. "Then we'll handle it my way." Morning rolled in gray and muggy. The Georgia sky hung low, heavy with clouds threatening rain that never came. Inside the Millbrook County Sheriff's Station, life pretended to be normal. Coffee percolated, phones rang, deputies griped about overtime, and argued over football scores. Darren Cole strolled in, 20 minutes late, coffee in one hand, donut in the other, grinning like a man fresh off a highlight reel. He'd watched the coverage the night before, read the furious comments, and laughed himself to sleep. What were they really gonna do? He was a cop. He had the union. He had Sergeant Harper. He had 8 years of skating by. "You see my arrest yesterday?" he bragged to a cluster of deputies near the vending machines. Guy thought he was somebody, rolling in that Ferrari. Turns out he's just another thug. Car looked like trash when I finished. A few deputies chuckled. Others stared at their phones, watching the view count climb on the viral clip, their smiles thin and nervous. None of them noticed the 3 black Chevrolet Suburbans gliding into the parking lot outside. Federal plates, dark tint, the unmistakable kind of vehicles that only arrived when something was seriously, irreversibly wrong. Doors opened in unison. 8 agents in dark suits and darker expressions stepped onto Millbrook County property. They moved as a unit, like an advancing squad. Leading them was ASAC Leonard Brooks, 55, 6'3", built like a retired linebacker who never really softened. His face looked carved from stone, his eyes holding all the warmth of a January morning in Chicago. He pushed through the station's front doors and headed straight for the reception desk. The deputy there looked up, confused, half a pastry still in hand. Brooks didn't wait. He held up his credentials. Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Leonard Brooks, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Atlanta Field Office. I'm here about the arrest of Agent Marcus Carter. I need your sheriff, your internal affairs, and the arresting deputy. Now! The word FBI rippled through the building like a live wire. Conversations froze. Coffee cups stopped halfway to mouths. Deputies who'd been laughing moments earlier suddenly had someplace else to be. Someone sprinted down the hallway to fetch Sheriff Henry Dalton. The sheriff emerged 30 seconds later, still tucking in his shirt, face pale as old paper. 58, more politician than cop. Dalton's experience mostly involved shaking hands, cutting ribbons, and managing budgets. FBI, his voice cracked. What's this about? Conference room, now, Brooks said. Bring everyone tied to yesterday's arrest. 5 minutes later, the key players were crammed around a table that felt much too small. Sheriff Dalton sat at one end, sweat beading at his hairline. Sergeant Denise Harper perched beside him, arms crossed tightly, jaw clenched. Darren Cole slouched in his chair, trying to project the same swagger he'd worn all morning. His leg bounced under the table, betraying him. Deputy Evan Locke stood awkwardly near the corner, doing his best impression of invisible. The room buzzed with attention. Everyone could taste, but no one wanted to name. By sundown, the clip had blown past 2 million views. Local news vans ringed the sheriff's office like vultures around a carcass. Reporters hurled questions at any badge they saw. Cameras popped, microphones jabbed at deputies who mumbled no comment and hurried inside. By midnight, the story had gone national. Viral video shows Georgia deputy deliberately rammed $200,000 Ferrari during traffic stop, arresting unarmed black driver. The Millbrook County Sheriff's Office finally pushed out a statement at 11:47 p.m. We are aware of the video circulating on social media and stand firmly behind our deputy's professionalism. The vehicle contact shown was accidental and occurred when the suspect's car rolled forward during the arrest. The language was dry, rehearsed, dripping with denial. A boilerplate. Excuse copied and pasted from 1,000 other damage control memos. Accidental? The internet scoffed. Comments poured in by the thousands, furious, disgusted, demanding consequences. People slowed the video down frame by frame, circling the reversing cruiser, replaying the impact. The clip was shared, reshared, downloaded, stitched, and reposted until it lived everywhere at once. People tagged civil rights lawyers and major journalists, but the most dangerous reaction wasn't online at all. It was brewing quietly somewhere else. FBI Atlanta Field Office, 9th floor. A young intel analyst named Ariana Lewis was scrolling her newsfeed during a coffee break when she froze. She recognized that face. The booking photo in the article belonged to a man she'd supported 3 years earlier on a nasty public corruption case, a case that buried a county commissioner and 2 city council members for bribery. She frowned, heartbeat spiking, and leaned closer to the monitor, reading the caption twice. "Run this name," she told the analyst in the next cubicle, her voice suddenly sharp. "Marcus Carter, Decatur address. Pull his file now." The database search finished in 4 seconds. Ariana's stomach dropped. "Oh my God!" 15 minutes later, Assistant Special Agent in Charge Leonard Brooks was on the phone. When he spoke, his voice had the killing cold of liquid nitrogen. She could feel the office temperature drop. "You're telling me one of my agents, a 16-year veteran of public corruption, was arrested by some county deputy for resisting arrest, and that his personal vehicle worth $200,000 was totaled by that same deputy, and nobody thought to call us for..." He checked his watch. 7 hours? He slammed a folder onto his desk hard enough to rattle his coffee cup and scare the room quiet. Get me Internal Affairs Bureau and Millbrook County. Get me the U.S. Attorney's Office. Pull every document you can find on Deputy Darren Cole. Complaints, incident reports, car accidents, performance reviews. Brooks paused, drawing in a long, steadying breath. "We're going to handle this strictly by the book." Another pause, heavier. "And then," he added, voice dropping, "we're going to handle it my way." Heads around him nodded grimly. The next morning crawled in, gray and wet. The Georgia sky sagged under thick clouds that threatened rain, yet never followed through. Inside the Millbrook County Sheriff's Station, life pretended nothing had changed. Coffee gurgled in stained pots. Phones rang. Deputies shuffled paper, grumbled about reports, argued over last night's game, and tried very hard not to mention the viral video echoing from every television screen. Darren Cole strutted in 20 minutes late, coffee in one hand, glazed donut in the other, wearing the smug grin of a man who believed he'd just cemented his legend. He'd watched the coverage, scrolled the outrage, and laughed himself to sleep. What were they going to do? Fire him? He had the union. He had Sergeant Harper. He had 8 years of skating past every complaint without so much as a slap. "You see my arrest yesterday?" he bragged to a cluster of deputies near the vending machines. Guy thought he was somebody driving that Ferrari. Turns out he's just another thug. Car looked like scrap metal when I finished with it. A couple of deputies snickered. Others stared at their phones, pretending to scroll email while watching the view counter on the video climb into another million. None of them noticed 3 black Chevrolet Suburbans sliding into the parking lot outside. Government plates, dark tint, engines idling low. The kind of vehicles that only showed up when something had gone very, very wrong. Doors opened in crisp sequence. 8 agents stepped out, all in dark suits and darker moods. They moved across the asphalt in tight formation, like an advancing squad entering hostile territory. At the front walked ACE Leonard Brooks, 55 years old, 6'3", built like a former linebacker who still hit the gym out of habit. His face looked carved from stone, his jaw set hard. His eyes held all the warmth of a January morning in Minnesota. He shoved through the glass doors and headed straight for the front desk without slowing his long, punishing stride. The deputy behind the counter looked up, frowning in confusion, crumbs still on his uniform. Brooks didn't bother with small talk. He flipped open his credentials in one smooth motion. Assistant Special Agent in Charge Leonard Brooks, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Atlanta Field Office. I'm here regarding the arrest of Agent Marcus Carter. I need your sheriff, your internal affairs unit, and the arresting deputy. Immediately! The word FBI shot through the station like a live wire. Conversations cut off mid-sentence. Coffee cups froze halfway to mouths. Deputies who'd been laughing seconds earlier suddenly remembered pressing tasks somewhere else. A young deputy bolted down the hallway to fetch Sheriff Henry Dalton. 30 seconds later, Dalton stumbled out of his office, still buttoning his shirt, his face the color of curdled, spoiled milk. 58 years old, a political appointee with friends on the county commission, Dalton had almost no real street experience beyond attending barbecues and balancing budgets. "FBI?" he croaked. "What's this about?" "Conference room, now!" Brooks ordered. "Bring everyone involved in yesterday's arrest." 5 minutes later, the main players sat around a conference table that suddenly felt 3 sizes too small and 10 degrees too hot, stifling and airless. Sheriff Dalton sat at one end, sweat soaking through his dress shirt. Sergeant Denise Harper sat rigid beside him, arms folded, jaw clenched. Darren Cole slouched in his chair, trying to wear the same swagger he'd strutted in with. His leg bounced under the table, betraying nerves. In the corner, Deputy Evan Locke hovered by the wall, shoulders hunched, doing everything he could to look invisible. ACE Brooks stood at the far end of the table. He didn't sit. He didn't smile. He didn't rush. Slowly, almost ceremonially, he set a leather credential wallet on the table. He flipped it open. Gold FBI badge, official ID card. The same face that Deputy Cole had dragged from a car, mocked, cuffed, and hauled to jail the day before, Special Agent Marcus Elijah Carter. Special Agent Marcus Elijah Carter, Brooks said evenly. Public Corruption Squad, 16 years of federal service, recipient of the FBI Medal for Meritorious Achievement, 3 commendation letters, 0 disciplinary actions. Silence swallowed the room. The kind of silence that smells like burning careers. Yesterday, Brooks went on, voice icy and precise, your deputy arrested a 16-year FBI veteran, charged him with resisting, obstruction, and felony evasion. He paused. None of that actually happened. He slid a glossy photo across the table. The Ferrari, what was left of it. Front end mashed in, side ripped to bare metal, mirrors blown apart, hood caved in with boot-shaped dents. Your deputy also totaled Agent Carter's personal vehicle, roughly $200,000, declared a total loss. Another photo. A razor line carved along the car's length. He did this on purpose in front of witnesses on video. Brooks tapped his phone. Ruth Campbell's recording lit his screen. The room watched the cruiser rocket backward, smashing into the Ferrari. The crunch of metal echoed through the speakers. Your deputy then filed an incident report claiming... Brooks pulled a paper from a folder, reading aloud, vehicle sustained minor damage when suspect's car rolled forward during arrest. He lifted his gaze. Someone explain how a parked vehicle rolls forward into a reversing patrol car? Cole's face had drained of color. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. I didn't know. He didn't tell me. How was I supposed to? He told you. He was a federal employee. Brooks cut in, voice suddenly hard. He gave you his badge number. You laughed, called him mall security. Then you K'd his car, kicked his door, smashed his mirror, stomped on his hood, and rammed it with your cruiser. Brooks turned to Sergeant Harper. And you, Sergeant, signed off on this report. It claims Agent Carter reached toward his waistband. He held the document up between 2 fingers. There is no second, on body cam, dash cam, or witness video, where that happens. You also approved describing approximately $127,000 in deliberate damage as minor vehicle contact. Harper's arms loosened. Her confident posture sagged. I relied on my deputy's statement. You endorsed a falsified report, Brooks said. You helped bury misconduct. That makes you a participant in civil rights violations. His eyes slid to the deputy Locke, still trying to blend into the wall. And you, Deputy Locke, you stood there the entire time. You watched your partner assault a federal agent, destroy his property, and lie on official paperwork. You filed nothing, said nothing, did nothing. Locke stared at the floor, hands shaking. Here's where we are, Brooks announced, voice filling the room. Civil rights violations under 18 U.S.C., paragraph 242, deprivation of rights under color of law, false statements to federal investigators, obstruction of justice, destruction of property, evidence tampering, and depending on how many people in this room knew and chose silence, he let the pause stretch. Conspiracy! That word hung above them like a falling axe. No one dared breathe too loud. The FBI is taking jurisdiction over this matter, Brooks continued. Your cooperation will be noted. Your interference will be prosecuted. You all have the right to legal counsel. I strongly suggest you use it. He closed the credential case with a soft snap. All charges against Agent Carter were dismissed 45 minutes ago. His arrest has been scrubbed from every database. This meeting is being recorded. Federal agents will start collecting evidence within the hour. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more point, he said, turning back. Agent Carter's entire career, 16 years, has been spent tracking corrupt officials, dirty cops, crooked politicians, people who think a badge or a title lets them crush whoever they want. He locked eyes with Cole. You picked the wrong man! In the holding area, a steel door screeched open. Marcus Carter rose from the bench, chains clinking softly. An FBI agent handed Marcus his belongings: wallet, phone, watch, keys to a car that now existed only on insurance forms and in his memories. He walked through the lobby without a word. Deputies stared. Some flushed and looked away. Others buried themselves in paperwork like children hiding behind furniture. Darren Cole, being escorted toward an interview room, passed within 3 feet of him. Their eyes met. Marcus said nothing. The silence was heavier than any sentence. Outside, the clouds had finally split. Sunlight poured across the parking lot, bright and unforgiving. Brooks waited beside one of the black Suburbans. You could have called us yesterday, he said as Marcus approached. 1 phone call. We'd have had 20 agents down here before dinner time. Marcus nodded slowly. If I had, they would have started shredding and misplacing things before you got here. Stories would have magically aligned. Body cam footage would have vanished forever. So you let them think they'd won, Brooks said. Marcus shrugged lightly. I let them lock their lies into the official record, file their false reports, map out their cover story. Once it's written down, it's evidence. Brooks studied him for a long beat. You built the case against yourself, he said quietly. Marcus shook his head. No, he answered. I built the case against them. Then he headed toward the impound lot. The Ferrari sat alone behind a chain-link fence, wrapped in yellow tape like a crime scene exhibit. Its nose was crushed inward, hood crumpled, frame twisted. The passenger side looked shredded, as if someone had attacked it with a metal claw. Puddles of dried coolant and oil stained the concrete beneath. Marcus laid his palm on the buckled roof and closed his eyes. His father had never once sat in that seat. Thomas Carter never heard the engine growl, never felt the leather, never touched the steering wheel of the car he dreamed of for 4 decades. And now that dream lay destroyed because a man with a badge had looked at Marcus and seen nothing but a stereotype, someone who shouldn't own something so expensive. $200,000 reduced to wreckage, a promise both fulfilled and shattered. Marcus stood there a long time, then turned away. Work waited. The FBI's Civil Rights Squad opened a formal case within 48 hours. 16 agents were assigned, more manpower than many homicide investigations ever see. Evidence techs swarmed Millbrook County like an invasion force. Boxing documents, imaging servers, seizing body cams, radios, hard drives, anything Cole had touched in the last 8 years. But the Bureau wasn't operating solo. Federal pressure forced Millbrook into launching its own internal probe, this time under federal supervision. For the first time in the department's 70-plus-year history, an internal affairs investigation wouldn't be controlled solely by local brass. Lieutenant Carla Jennings was tapped to lead the county's review. 54 years old, 32 in uniform, and one of only a handful of black officers above sergeant, she'd built her career by being twice as capable in rooms that barely wanted her there. She understood exactly how dangerous this moment was. For everyone, the body camera evidence came first. Cole claimed his camera had malfunctioned, battery issue, random glitch. Hardware fails sometimes, he'd said. The FBI's digital lab told a different story. Log files showed the unit had been powered down manually at 14:32, exactly 4 minutes before the Ferrari was rammed. It stayed off until 14:51, long after Marcus was in cuffs and the car was crippled. This wasn't malfunction. It was intentional blackout. But Cole hadn't accounted for Ruth Campbell. He didn't know her phone had captured every second his camera missed. The slashing, the boot prints, the impact, his casual voice on the radio, calling it minor contact, all in crisp video with clear audio. Next came pattern analysis. FBI data specialists pulled 8 years of Cole's traffic stop history. Every stop, every citation, every complaint, and started charting it. The result looked less like random policing and more like a hunting pattern. 37 stops involving black drivers in high-end cars: Mercedes, BMW, Lexus, Tesla, Jaguar. In each report, Cole cited suspicious behavior or erratic driving as justification. Actual tickets were issued in only 2 cases. Contraband was found in none. His body camera malfunctioned during 11 of those stops. In 7 separate incidents, vehicles sustained what his reports called incidental damage. Scratches, dents, cracked glass. Everyone signed off as accidental by Sergeant Harper. Marcus Carter wasn't Cole's first target. He was number 38. The only real difference was that Marcus had the reach to hit back. Deputy Evan Locke's interview happened in a bland gray room. Metal table, plastic chairs, recorder blinking red. Lieutenant Jennings sat across from him, calm, patient, unwavering. Locke's leg bounced like it had its own heartbeat. His fingers worried at each other as if he could twist his guilt away. "You were present for the whole encounter," Jennings said finally. "You watched him drag Mr. Carter out of the car. You watched him key the paint, kick the door, smash the mirror. You saw him reverse at full speed into the Ferrari." She let the words sink in. "And you stayed silent. You took no action. Why?" Locke's voice cracked. I wanted to. I knew it was wrong. But you don't cross Cole. Everyone knows that. Harper protects him. The union shields him. If I'd spoken up, I'd be writing parking tickets in the worst corner of the county forever." "So you picked your career over that man's rights," Jennings said quietly. "I've got kids, a mortgage," he whispered. "I was scared." She leaned forward. "Deputy Locke, you have a choice right now. Help us completely or stand beside him when the indictments land. Cooperate fully, and we talk about your future," she continued. "Stay quiet, and you'll be listed on obstruction charges, conspiracy, accessory, after the fact." The room went still. Locke's hands finally stopped twisting. "I'll cooperate," he said hoarsely. "I'll tell you everything." He swallowed. He planned it before we pulled the guy over. At the gas station, he saw the Ferrari, saw the black driver, and said, "Watch me teach this one about driving cars he can't afford." Premeditation spoken out loud. Admissible. Locke kept talking. "He does this constantly. Anytime he spots a black guy in a nice ride, he assumes dealer, thief, pimp, stolen car, never anything legit. It's like it offends him personally that they can afford it." Locke looked sick. "People have reported him. Lots of people. Complaints go nowhere. Harper signs everything. The sheriff doesn't want drama. The union fights every inquiry. Everybody knows. Nobody acts. We all just look away. Sergeant Denise Harper's interview was a different beast. She arrived with a union lawyer and a storm cloud of attitude. Arms folded, chin up, she sat as if daring anyone to move her. The confidence didn't last. Sergeant Harper, an FBI agent, began, "You've supervised Cole for 6 years. In that span, he's drawn 8 formal complaints, force issues, racial comments, illegal searches, and 7 accidental vehicle damages during stops. You approved each dismissal, each report." "I followed departmental protocols," she snapped. "You also wrote in his performance review." The agent lifted a sheet. "That Deputy Cole shows exceptional commitment to proactive policing. Explain proactive when it includes deliberately vandalizing a citizen's $200,000 car." Her attorney leaned in, whispering furiously. "My client is invoking her Fifth Amendment rights," he announced. "That's her prerogative," the agent replied, "but her signature sits on 7 fraudulent damage reports. She either knew or didn't want he to know. Either way," he continued, "she helped sustain a pattern of abuse that crosses from sloppy supervision into potential criminal complicity. So, Sergeant, law enforcement is done for you. The only open question now is whether you spend upcoming years pushing a shopping cart or wearing a jumpsuit." Harper's jaw clenched, but she said nothing. Meanwhile, Sheriff Henry Dalton wasn't giving taped statements. He was in damage control meetings, trying desperately to salvage his political life. His session with County Council lasted 4 tense hours. "Sheriff, it's worse than we thought. The FBI has jurisdiction because the victim is one of theirs. We're facing civil rights charges, destruction of federal property, obstruction, conspiracy. If we stonewall, we risk a full federal consent decree, long-term oversight of this entire department." Dalton swallowed. "What's our move?" "Get ahead of it," counsel replied. "Fire Cole immediately, suspend Harper, announce reforms before Washington shoves them down our throats." "And if we don't?" Dalton asked. The attorney exhaled. "Then Millbrook becomes a national shorthand for police corruption. Property values tumble, tax revenue shrinks, businesses walk, and you personally become the poster boy for institutional rot." Dalton fired Cole that afternoon. Ruth Campbell gave her sworn statement days later in a conference room at the FBI's Atlanta office. She wore a navy dress, a pearl brooch, and the expression of someone who'd seen something she'd never forget. Her hands folded neatly on the table, though they trembled slightly. Her voice stayed steady as tears slipped down. "I've lived in Millbrook 32 years, and taught 3rd grade for 35, she said. "Raised my kids there, buried my husband there. I always believed most officers were good people in tough jobs." She paused, dabbing her cheeks. "But what I watched that day," she shook her head, "you can't explain it away. You just can't." "That man did nothing wrong," she said firmly. "He was polite, respectful. He answered everything. And that deputy, he enjoyed hurting him. You could see it. He smiled when he scraped that car. He laughed when he kicked the door and broke the mirror. And when he backed into it, that was no accident. He looked straight at it and stomped the gas." She drew a breath, voice catching. "I knew I had to do something. Even if people got mad at me. Even if it cost me friends. Even if it made life in town harder," Ruth continued, looking straight into the camera. "Somebody had to be the witness. Somebody had to say what really happened." Marcus Carter gave his formal statement the same day, in another room down the hall. "I followed every instruction," he said. "I told him I worked for the federal government. I gave him my badge number repeatedly. I asked for probable cause 4 times. I never resisted, never obstructed, never tried to flee. His voice stayed even, the cadence of someone used to testifying under oath. He destroyed my car anyway, not because I did anything, not because he had evidence of a crime, but because he looked at me and saw something he didn't like. A black man with something expensive. A black man who didn't fit. A black man who didn't belong. Nah. That car was my father's dream, Marcus added softly. He worked 40 years as a mail carrier. No vacations, no splurges. But every Sunday we'd walk past that dealership and he'd touch the glass and say, "Someday, son, someday." Marcus's voice faltered, just once. He died 2 years ago. His last wish was for me to buy that car. So I did. Every cent I'd saved, every dollar of his policy, I bought it for him. And Deputy Cole destroyed it in 15 minutes, Marcus finished, straightening. Because I'm black. Because he assumed no one would believe me. Because he thought he could get away with it, just like he had 37 times before. He stared into the lens. He was wrong. The investigation rolled on for 3 months. News coverage didn't fade. Cable panels argued nightly. Social feeds pulsed with outrage. Millbrook became shorthand for everything broken in American policing. Marcus gave no interviews, no press conferences, no hashtags with his name. He let the paperwork, footage, and data tell the story. Justice came with collateral damage. His face lived everywhere now, on broadcasts, thumbnails, protest signs, slides and training seminars. The undercover identity he'd spent 16 years honing was effectively dead. His value as a covert asset, the thing he did better than almost anyone, was gone. The Ferrari was gone too, officially declared a total loss. Insurance cut a check for salvage value, $8,200, $200,000 reduced to that. Some things you don't get back. Some costs never really balance. Attorney Daniel Mercer was 62, hair silver at the temples, eyes still prosecutorial sharp. A former federal prosecutor turned civil rights litigator, he'd spent decades dragging police departments into court. He met Marcus in a quiet office overlooking downtown Atlanta, legal pads stacked like bricks on his desk. "Agent Carter," Mercer began, "the Bureau will handle the criminal side. That's their lane. But there's a civil case here too, against Cole, the county, the system that let this slide 37 times before it hit you." "I'm not chasing a payout," Marcus said. "I'm not talking about a payday for you," Mercer replied. "I'm talking about making it financially painful to protect bad cops. Big enough that other counties look at this and think, we can't afford that." "Your car was worth just under $200,000, Mercer continued. "Your undercover career, if we even try to value that, represents decades of lost federal service. Your father's memory was spit on, literally and figuratively. Damages are substantial. You can donate every penny if you want, but first make them write the check. Hit them where they actually feel it, in the budget, in insurance premiums, at the ballot box." Marcus sat quietly, then nodded. "Do it." The press conference came on a Tuesday. Sheriff Dalton stood behind a podium, bristling with microphones, looking like a man braced for execution. After a comprehensive internal review, he read, "Deputy Darren Cole has been terminated for cause. His actions, including the deliberate destruction of a citizen's vehicle, violated department policy, training, and the constitutional rights of an American citizen. Such conduct will not be tolerated in Millbrook County. 8 years late, but finally said aloud. 2 weeks later, the federal indictment dropped. Former Deputy Darren Cole has been charged with federal civil rights offenses, the U.S. Attorney announced, including deprivation of rights under color of law, destruction of property, falsifying records, and obstruction of justice. Combined, the counts carried a maximum of 20 years behind bars. Sergeant Harper was suspended without pay for 90 days and permanently stripped of supervisory authority. Her signature on those 7 reports was now Exhibit A in enabling abuse. She resigned 3 months later rather than face more investigations. The civil suit moved quickly. County attorneys knew they were cornered. The video was devastating. The pattern evidence was worse. Public fury was relentless. Millbrook County settled for $2.4 million. Marcus donated every dollar. A portion funded scholarships for black recruits seeking law enforcement careers. Another chunk went to a wrongful conviction legal fund. The largest piece, $800,000, quietly landed in Ruth Campbell's church building fund. He never told her. She found out only when contractors showed her the anonymous donor receipt. The federal consent decree followed 6 months after the stop. 5 years of mandated oversight, new training on bias and de-escalation, strict body cam rules with automatic firing for tampering, mandatory reporting of any vehicle damage during stops, a civilian review board with subpoena power. For the first time, Millbrook's police weren't just policing, they were being watched. Deputy Locke testified fully against his former partner. His cooperation kept him out of a jumpsuit. Instead, he was moved to the training division, where he now teaches a block called Duty to Intervene, how to step in when another officer crosses the line. He starts every session with the same line. This is what I should have done. The sentencing hearing for Cole took place on a cold December morning in federal court. Cole stood before the judge in a wrinkled suit, no badge, no gun, no shield of authority, just a defendant. Mr. Cole, the judge said, you've pleaded guilty to 1 count of deprivation of rights under color of law and 1 count of destruction of property. Do you understand the consequences of this plea? Cole barely managed, yes, Your Honor. You are sentenced to 51 months in federal prison, the judge continued, and ordered to pay $198,000 restitution. You are permanently barred from any employment in law enforcement in any jurisdiction, anywhere in the United States, the judge finished. 4 years and 3 months. Cole's shoulders sagged as marshals led him away. Marcus donated the restitution too. He didn't attend the sentencing. He was back on the job, chasing a new corruption target. When a colleague asked why he'd skipped court, Marcus simply said, "The best payback is doing your work well." Ruth sat in the back row that day, watching the man who'd brutalized a stranger over a car be escorted out in cuffs. She thought of that afternoon on the shoulder, thumb hovering over the record button, heart pounding. Sometimes courage is nothing more than pressing record and refusing to look away. A year later, Marcus pulled into a Ferrari showroom in Atlanta, sunlight bouncing off polished hoods like spotlights. A salesman hustled over, wearing a practiced grin. "Beautiful day, sir. Thinking about trading up?" Marcus scanned the rows. Red, black, silver, each one priced higher than most people's yearly salaries. He pictured his father's calloused hand on thick glass. "All those Sundays ago." "No," he said quietly. "Just looking." Then he turned and walked out. The insurance payout sat untouched. Between that and his salary, he could have bought another Ferrari. He didn't. Some things you can't replace with money. Some dreams are tied to a specific moment, a specific person. Once that's gone, the object doesn't mean the same thing. Instead, Marcus bought a silver Honda Accord. Sensible, reliable, invisible. It got him to his mother's house every Sunday, and that was enough. In his home office, he set a new photo on his dresser. This time, not glossy perfection, but wreckage. It showed the demolished Ferrari, hood buckled, grille shattered, deep scar etched from front to back. Reflected faintly in a surviving shard of windshield glass was his father's smiling face from the old marine photo frame behind it. Marcus kept the image not to fixate on the hate, but to remember why the fight mattered. Ruth's church dedicated its new community hall with a small ceremony. A plaque near the entrance read, "Restored through the generosity of a friend." She still didn't know who had funded the bulk of it, though she had a feeling. Addressing the congregation, she smiled through tears. "Sometimes courage is just pressing record," she said. "And sometimes kindness comes back to you from someone you tried to stand up for. I don't know who gave us this gift, but I know why. They wanted something good to come out of something terrible." Months later, someone asked Marcus if he was still angry. He considered the question. "I was," he answered. "Some days I still am. I lost my father's dream. I lost all the money I'd saved. I lost my ability to ever work undercover again because my face is everywhere." He paused. "But anger without direction is just noise. I turned what happened into something that mattered. Most people had never get that chance. They shouldn't have to. That's why systems have to change," he said. "It can't depend on people being perfect victims, calm on camera, lucky enough to be an FBI agent with witnesses rolling video. Most folks who go through what I did don't get justice. They just get trauma." He looked out a nearby window. "The system failed 37 people before me. I was number 38. I was the lucky one." He didn't sound triumphant. He sounded resolute. Cole served 43 months of his 51-month term before supervised release. He emerged with no badge, no department willing to touch him, and a massive restitution bill he'd never realistically pay. Millbrook County remains under federal oversight until 2029. Ruth's video has been watched over 50 million times. Marcus still drives to his mother's house every Sunday in the silver Accord. Sometimes, late at night, he sits in his garage, staring at the empty space. He hears his father's voice again. "Someday, son, someday." Someday came. It just didn't look like they imagined. And maybe that's the point. Justice isn't a shiny finish or a perfect ending. It's course correction, often messy and incomplete, but better than silence. It's making sure the next black man pulled over in the wrong place, with the wrong car, has a better chance than Marcus did. Less luck, more protection. Marcus never set out to become a symbol. He wanted to work cases, not headlines. But he became one anyway, because a man with a badge looked at a car and a skin tone and decided he already knew the whole story. He was wrong. Now millions of people know it. Policies changed. Careers ended. A department got dragged into the light. A community learned that sometimes the difference between a cover-up and a reckoning is one witness who refuses to look away. If this story stirred something in you, anger, hope, unease, or just a need to think, don't let it evaporate. Tell someone, show someone, share it with the person who says, it can't be that bad, or he must have done something, because stories like Marcus Carter's don't move on their own. They move when we carry them, from living room to classroom, from phone screen to dinner table, until one day looks different for the next person. And somewhere out on a Georgia highway, another black driver in another car sees lights flare in the mirror. Hands go to 10 and 2. Heart rate spikes. But maybe now the deputy thinks twice about switching off his camera. Maybe he remembers the name Millbrook. Maybe he remembers a number, 2.4 million, or a video he saw that ended one cop's career. Maybe that tiny sliver of caution is the difference between a ticket and a tragedy. Marcus can't control that moment. Neither can Ruth or ASAC Brooks or Lieutenant Jennings. But they shifted the odds just a bit. And sometimes just a bit is enough to change someone's life. He still misses the car. He still misses the version of his father who would have sat beside him, laughing as the engine roared down Peachtree Street. But when he looks at that photo of twisted metal, he sees something else now. Proof that a line was finally drawn. Not a perfect line, not a straight one, but a line. The day Darren Cole decided a black man couldn't own a Ferrari without being a criminal, he thought he was writing Marcus's story. Instead, he wrote his own ending. Marcus just finished the case. Ruth just pressed record. The FBI just did its job. And somewhere, another officer sees a black driver in a nice car and remembers how quickly a lie can blow up a career. So the next time you see a headline, a shaky phone video, a protest sign with a name you've never heard, remember Marcus and Ruth and the shattered red Ferrari. Remember that a system doesn't change because it wants to. It changes because people force it to, by documenting, by testifying, by refusing to stay quiet. Justice didn't give Marcus back his father's dream, but it made sure that dream didn't die in silence. One day, son. One day. The words linger not as a promise of horsepower and Italian leather, but as a challenge. One day, make this better than it was. One day, leave it less dangerous than you found it. One day, make sure fewer people need cameras and lawyers to survive a traffic stop. That's the one day Marcus works for now. Not in showrooms, but in statements, subpoenas, and the stubborn, steady grind of justice. The Ferrari is gone. The badge remains. So does the fight. And so does the story. No longer just Marcus's, or Ruth's, or Millbrook's, but ours. Because the next time someone in a uniform looks at a driver and decides they already know who he is, how that story ends will depend on what we did with this one. Whether we filed it away as just another outrage or let it change what we demand from anyone who wears a badge. If this story made you clench your jaw, or wipe your eyes, or sit in uneasy silence, don't let that feeling fade into the scroll. Use it. Talk with someone who doesn't see the problem. Ask questions at your local council meeting. Support the people pressing record, the lawyers filing suits, the officers who step in when their partners cross the line. Justice isn't a spectator sport. It's work. Slow, frustrating, necessary work. Marcus Carter never wanted fame. He wanted a Sunday drive with his dad in a red car. He never got that. But he did get something his father would have understood. A chance to stand up, to push back, to make sure the next generation walks a little safer than he did. Maybe one day a black man in a Ferrari will get pulled over, and the officer will see a driver, not a threat. That maybe is worth fighting for. Until then, the accord keeps rolling. The work keeps coming, and the story keeps traveling from screen to screen, mouth to mouth. You don't have to be an agent, or a lawyer, or a witness on a lonely road to be part of it. You just have to remember, to pay attention, to refuse easy excuses. Because the moment we stop looking, the moment we stop asking, is the moment someone like Cole slips through again. Millbrook County will live under federal oversight for years yet. Policies will change. Officers will retire. New recruits will sit through trainings that begin with a grainy video of a red Ferrari and a deputy making all the wrong choices. Some will roll their eyes. Some will really listen. A few will walk out of that room determined to be the kind of cop who steps in, not the one who looks away. That's how culture shifts, one choice at a time. And somewhere, in a modest Decatur house, a framed marine photo and a folded flag still sit on a dresser. Beside them, a picture of twisted metal and a man who refused to let that be the end. One day, son, one day. The dream changed shape. The fight didn't. The badge, the accord, the stories told in classrooms and living rooms, that's the ride Thomas Carter gave his son. It's not the one he imagined. It might be better. Because in the end, justice isn't chrome and horsepower. It's accountability. It's making sure power has to answer to someone. It's a black agent who refused to break, a retired teacher who pressed record, and a country that had to look at what happened and decide what to do with it. The Ferrari rusted. The video didn't. Neither did the lesson. The next chapter belongs to whoever's willing to keep paying attention. If this story reached you, if it lit a spark of anger, or hope, or stubborn determination, pass it on. Stories like Marcus Carter's don't move themselves, we move them. From phone to phone, from heart to heart, until one day isn't a fragile wish pressed against showroom glass, but a lived reality where dignity doesn't depend on the color of your skin or the car that you drive. Dignity can be crushed, but not erased. If you are in your late 60s or 70s, you have seen this before. A black man treated as less than human because someone in uniform decided he didn't belong. Marcus wasn't a teenager on a street corner. He was a 42-year-old FBI agent, a Marine veteran, a son honoring his father's last wish with that red Ferrari. Yet in minutes on a quiet Georgia road, a deputy spat on his car, slashed the leather, and smashed the hood as if he were punishing an animal. Many of you remember when that kind of abuse never made the news. The lesson is clear. No matter our age or accomplishments, our dignity can still be attacked. So we must never pretend the struggle against racism is behind us. One witness can change the whole story. Older Americans know how much courage it takes to speak up in a small town where everybody knows your name. Ruth, a 67-year-old retired teacher, could have driven past and told herself, "It's none of my business." Instead, with shaking hands, she pressed record. That simple act turned a lonely roadside assault into national evidence. Her video forced the FBI to move, exposed years of patterns, and helped push a bad deputy out of law enforcement. For those of us who have watched neighbors stay silent to keep the peace, Ruth reminds us that real peace sometimes begins when one person refuses to look away. Justice is slow, but it still matters. By the time we reach our later years, we know change rarely comes in one big moment. It comes in little steps. Policy reforms, federal oversight, hard conversations at kitchen tables and town halls. Marcus lost his father's dream car. He lost the undercover career he loved. Yet his case brought new rules and a warning to every officer who thinks cameras are optional and lies are harmless. We may not live to see a perfect system, but we can still help bend it, inch by inch, towards something safer for our grandchildren. Friends, after hearing Marcus's story and these 3 lessons about dignity, courage, and slow but real justice, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed or personally felt someone being treated unfairly just because of how they looked or what they owned? If you had been in Ruth's shoes on that Georgia roadside, do you think you would have pressed record? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future stories and reflections that honor your experience and wisdom.